Hello, hello, and welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is the 14th episode of the Wrongfully Convicted Wisconsin versus Zachariah Anderson series on my channel. And we've already gone through all of the court documents, all of the testimony. We've gone through the trial. So now this is my take on why Zach is innocent. 13 reasons why Zachariah Anderson is guilty. I put together this presentation, so it's voiceover only for me today. Before we get started, please like this video, comment below, let me know what you think. What are your reasons why Zach is innocent? What are the reasons that I left out? Let me know in the comments below. And also don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any posts about this case. So I want to start off by saying this particular quote by Edward Murrow, who was an American broadcast journalist, but he was also an activist in his time, and he wrote for political purposes and things like that. So he was he was an outspoken journalist back, ahead of his time, probably. Let's say. Anyways, so he says, "We must remember always that accusation is not proof and that conviction depends upon the evidence and due process of law." So let's break that up for a second. We've got accusation is not proof. So just because someone is accused of or charged with a crime does not mean that that is proof that they did it. And I wish the mass media, the news outlets, everyone would get this straight. YouTubers too, that just because someone is charged and put away for pending charges for a crime does not necessarily mean that they are guilty. You do not know if they are guilty or not until you find, it comes out in the court of law. And the other two things that depend upon conviction or guilt are evidence and due process of law. So we're going to look at a lot of evidence in this case. In my 13 reasons why Zach is innocent, we're going to go over all of these. I mean, a lot of it is not necessarily repetitive. I mean, yes, we've gone through it, but it's interesting to look at it from this perspective where we're going to narrow it down in a list. And this is why, Zach's innocent. And if you look at everything all together, yeah, it's crazy how he was ever found guilty. But let's continue. So conviction depends upon evidence and due process of law. We're going to, throughout my list, we're going to kind of keep this thought process in the back of your mind because it's going to show evidence or lack of evidence and some points in time where his due process might have been affected. So with that being said, let's begin. This is number 13 on my list. Sadie had motive to cause Zach harm. And this is a multi-part answer. So, excuse me. Sorry, I feel like frog in my throat. All right. So Sadie had motive to cause Zach harm. And number one reason why was infidelity. So if we view Zach's interrogation, it's an interview with the police, but I think it's an interrogation. He doesn't know it's an interrogation because it seems all nice and friendly and buddy, but at the very end, it's like, oh yeah, we're charging you with stalking for Rosalio and Sadie. And he's like, what? And I was like, what? We both were like, what? Because it just came kind of out of the blue. But if you know how police detectives work like this, they're usually calling you in because they already are potentially looking at you as the suspect. But anyway, so when Zach is in this interview with police, this was May 19th, the very same day that Rosalio was reported missing by Sadie, the same day she went over to his apartment and found that he was missing. So in this interview, he admits that he cheated on Sadie in the past, and as he puts it, it poisoned their relationship. So they've had, since then, a tenuous and jealous relationship. So that's another part of why Sadie had motive to cause harm. So we know that Zach and Sadie met sometime in 2007. They began dating, but it's been off and on ever since. Sadie has alleged that Zach cheated on her multiple times throughout the relationship. Not only that, but other accusations that it's unclear what, but we just know that she'd been stringing him along and accusing him of things that he didn't do. In 2008, daughter OA is born. And I don't know if this is their daughter or their son. I'm assuming daughter because it's only one, but I don't know because they have twin boys also. So this might be their daughter. I'm not sure. And I just think it's a cute picture of Zach, so I chose that. All right, so a tenuous and jealous relationship. Continuing on, in 2012, Zach and Sadie stopped living together, but they continue to see each other because obviously in 2015 they have their boys, their twin boys. So here is the whole family, minors' faces redacted for privacy purposes. But this is obviously a picture of them probably at the Anderson Tree Farm if I were to guess, picking out their tree. All right, so next up, 2016, Zach lives outside of Wisconsin for approximately a year and a half. This is when he's working outside of the state. Sadie testified that they were in a relationship at this time, and she states, well, we talked on the phone, Skyped once in a while. He wanted to see the kids, so we would have some contact, probably weekly. So she admits to still being in a relationship with him in 2016, even though maybe things were not as close because it doesn't seem like they talked more than once a week. Excuse me. All right, so now flash forward to December 2019, sorry, and this is December 24th. So Christmas Eve, Zach and Sadie get into a verbal altercation regarding the children at Sadie's home. Zach was given a municipal citation because Sadie called the police on him. So he was given a police citation of disorderly conduct, and Sadie requested a 72-hour no contact period, which was granted. So he got a no contact order, but it only lasted a couple days. The Washington's County District Attorney declined to prosecute the incident because there was no physical confrontation between the two parties. So who knows what Sadie told them, but it seems like whatever happened, Sadie got her way by calling the police out of that conversation. But why were they arguing? What was going on? Was it having to do with her character, her being a good mother, that type of thing. So who knows what that was about? I don't know. I don't really want to speculate. It doesn't matter. But according to Sadie, after this incident, the breakup was, quote, for good. Yeah, we'll see about that. All right, so another reason why Sadie had motive to cause Zach harm was evidence of stringing Zach along. And this is, as you can see, so February 13th, Rosalio meets Sadie on Facebook Dating. He also meets Kim Lavora, but we'll get to her later. So this is I just want to reference as the background. This is when Rosalio and Sadie meet, is February 13th. So keep that in mind. They had this huge fight December 24th, 2019, and by February 13th, 2020, she's met Rosalio on this dating website. March 21st. Flash forward a little bit further. And these are some texts between Zach and Sadie. Sadie to Zach. Morning. When did you leave? I thought you were going to stay. Meaning from last night, like he was over the night before. And he responds, good morning, pretty lady. I left when everyone fell asleep last night. And she says, okay, but you fell asleep first. So obviously wondering like why he left. You could have stayed at my house kind of thing. So I don't know if that's platonic or if there was more there. But as you can see, she's clearly not afraid of him. Because stalking was supposed to be part of her charges against him. And she's supposed to be scared of him. All right, so also March 21st, this is later in the day, right? Yeah, same day. Okay. Zach to Sadie, you and Leo got a date tonight? What's the plan? She says, ha, good night. And he says, good night. Or he says, ha, good night. And she says, good night, Z-Bear. Calling him a term of endearment, some phrase she might have called him when they were in a relationship. So if she's not in a relationship, why is she calling him Z-Bear? And on the stand, she was like, I don't know, I call everybody Bear. So it just felt familiar to me. Like, what? She calls everybody Bear. Like, I've never heard that phrase, good night, Z-Bear, but okay. Anyways, March 22nd, the next day, 7:11 a.m., Zach to Sadie, good morning, Sadie Jane Bear. She replies at 8:20, good morning, and he says, what time, or she says, 8:40 at 8:43, what time are you thinking of heading this way? So she's inviting him to come over and hang out with her and the kids. So this is early in the morning on March 22nd, so, she's making plans with him to come over and spend time together. All right, so more evidence that Sadie is stringing Zach along. March 27th, Zach to Sadie, good night, S, or G night, S. And Sadie replies, good night, A-Bear, and then she corrects herself and says Z. So she's still calling him Z-Bear. She's still, they're still sending each other good night texts. While she's also texting Rosalio too, but that's besides the point. I didn't include those. Just including their texts. All right, so evidence of Sadie stringing Zach along on March 29th. Sadie to Zach, I want to give us a chance, but I feel like I'm just going to lose the fight. And then she says, good night, Z-Bear again. And Zach to Sadie, I don't have any fight for you. I don't have any arguments. I have some questions, some feelings. Good night, Sadie Bear. I love you. So, I mean, she says right there, I want to give us a chance. I mean, I get that she's like saying, but I want to give us a chance, but she's still saying, I want to give us a chance. Like whether she really wants to or not, she's stringing him along. By saying that, strings him along. So now, a month later, we've got Zach to Sadie. We stopped by to grab warmer clothes for heading to the lake house. Looks like you didn't make it home. ... Again. So this is becoming a pattern. He's noticing she's not coming home. She's not going to work. She's, she's just acting strange. She's being, verbally inappropriate with kids, like fighting with them and arguing with them and things like that, calling them things that that a mother shouldn't be calling their kids and whatnot. So, at least that's what Zach and OA were, trying to capture on a cell phone that Sadie thought he was trying to stalk him with or whatever. But anyways, that's later on in the story. So April 22nd, he says, we stopped by to grab some more warmer clothes, heading to the beach house. You didn't make it home again. And then at 9 a.m., she responds, I'm about to be in a conference call in a minute. In short, I'm tired of all your accusations about where I am. You're really overly paranoid. I'm just at Becky's, you fool. Enough. So she's sleeping over at Rebecca's house, like adults sleeping over at other adults' house, unless you're like dating someone. It doesn't really make sense to go and sleep over at your best friend's house, but whatever. And then Zach says to Sadie, it wasn't an accusation, it was an observation. And then Sadie, later that day, the same day after, I think they talked on the phone, they might have in between, but later that day, Sadie to Zach, picking up Panda Express. If you want to come over for a little bit, let me know. So she's dating this Leo guy, but that he knows of, but she's denying it all and saying she's at Becky's. And then picking up Panda Express, come on over tonight. If he's not confused by what she's thinking, then he must be able to read her mind, because it very much seems like she's playing mind games or control games or something. More evidence of this. So 9:43 p.m. I still love you. Thanks for having me over. Good night. So this is the same night that he went over there with Panda Express. So I guess he went home. I still love you. Thank you for having me over. Good night. Sadie says to Rosalio, laying here, ready to go to bed, baby. And then Rosalio says, good night and sweet dreams. Sadie to Zach, good night, XOXO. And then, good night, Rosalio, she says. So if that's not stringing Zach along, I don't know what is. All right, so May 1st, just a few days later here, we've got Zach to Sadie on his flip phone. He says, you always refuse to say we are done. You refuse to say it's over. You act angry with me for taking interest in someone else while you and Booger sleep in the same bed. And by Booger, he means Rosalio. So Zach to Sadie, because we both know you and him are looking for more. And that is your choice, and that isn't something that could offer you and I a future together. And in this text string, I think this is Zach coming to a realization, like, look, you're dating some guy, you're still in denial, not telling me about it, but what you're doing, your actions, they're not going to help us if you want to work on us. So I feel like he's getting this mixed signal from her, like, let's work on us or whatever, and then he's doing his own detective work to find out that she is seeing this other guy, Rosalio, and he knows that can't help them in their future. So I feel like that's his text to her, but I don't know. I could be speculating on all of that. It just feels that way from reading all the texts. Anyway, so same day, Zach to Sadie, because we both know you and him are looking for more, and that's your choice. Oh, I said that already. Sorry. I did proof these, but I missed that one. All right, so that was that. That was the last of evidence of her stringing him along. Sorry, I'm like flipping through everything so fast. Okay, so the next part of number 13 is Sadie had motive to cause Zach harm. Custody battle begins. So May 8th is when Zach and Sadie have conversations on the phone discussing childcare for the day and arguing. Zach records a conversation. Zach says, are you ready to hate me? And tells Sadie he is filing for child custody. Sadie alleges that she files the paperwork for child custody instead. So she's saying she filed it, but I don't know if that's true. And this, by the way, is artwork done by Zach while he's in prison. And you can see initials in there. So I think it's his kid's initials. Not sure. No, maybe not. Oh, maybe it is. I can't tell. All right, so custody battle begins. And then, so May 8th is when he tells her, we're going to court about this. or, I'm gonna fight you for the kids. That's when he tells her. And then um, that's when she starts talking to Rosalio about custody, and Becky and her have their texts, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So the custody battle begins, which leads us into messages between Sadie and Rosalio threatening Zach. And this is another multi-parter. This is the Plan B text message string. All right, so March 5th. Remember, she's still calling Zach Z-Bear and having him come over and asking him why he didn't spend the night during this time frame. March 5th. Rebecca calls Sadie at 3. Okay, so this is like the catalyst of what started off the Plan B text messages. Just wanted to be clear as to why I'm referring to this. So on March 5th, this is when Rebecca calls Sadie. Then both Sadie and Rebecca called the Germantown PD to report that Zach came over unannounced and was attempting to take the kids and did not have permission to do so. Well, first of all, this is when Sadie went out of the country, not telling the father of her children that she was leaving the country and leaving them in the care of her best friend, Rebecca, who Zach does not get along with. So there's that. And in some testimony, I think it was her testimony, Rebecca said that she was only supposed to be taking care of the kids for a couple nights. So who was taking care of the kids the other days? I want to know. All right, so anyways, the fact that they say he did not have permission to take the kids, which is completely false because there's no order whatsoever of the kids' arrangements, of the kids' anything. He had more right to take those kids than Rebecca did, because he is the father of those kids. He could have called the police and said, "Get this woman out of my house," or my ex's house. These are my children, and she doesn't have permission to be babysitting them. And he could have done that, but that's a different story for a different day. Maybe in an alternate universe that happened, and she's sitting in prison and Zach's not. But I don't know. Sometimes I like to think about, like, what if this happened and it would be in an alternate universe, what would happen? Anyways, sorry. That's my nerding out there. So police found Zach cooking breakfast. He stated that he normally had permission from Sadie to go over there and do, breakfast, have meals with the kids and things like that, spend time with kids. He had permission to go over there and do his laundry. He said on his arrival, the residence of the front door was unlocked, so he was concerned that the children were home alone, which is a very valid concern, especially because he was trying to get a hold of Sadie and she was not answering his texts. So Sadie requested that Zach be asked to leave. Zach had laundry in the washing machine, so he was allowed to retrieve his laundry and say goodbye to the kids. Zach was then escorted out of the residence per Sadie's request. No citations, arrests, or orders were placed. So nothing was done about this incident. Like, it was just an incident. The cops were like, okay, we don't know who's doing what. We don't care. Just, if she was here first, you leave and whatever. Like, they just pretty much took the woman's side, and I don't know. He could have taken his kids if he wanted to, regardless of what time of day or night. Anyways. So that whole thing is what started the Plan B conversation, because right after that happens, right after she gets off the phone with Rebecca Jekyll, her best friend, then she's texting Rosalio saying, "I have some things already documented, especially from the last incident. Anyway," and then Rosalio says, "Babe, I can stake out your house tonight like a detective, LOL." This was all coming first from him telling her, like, you got to document everything. So she's saying that she had documented some things. And then he says he'll stake out the house like a detective. And she responds, "Oh my God, you're so sweet. LOL. Gross." And sorry. And then Rosalio to Sadie, "But seriously, I don't have the kids tonight." And then she says, "No, he can't come back to my I'm assuming house, or he'll get arrested. The cops told my friend to call back if he comes back. Rosalio to Sadie. Or, so this is 7:31, where'd we go? 7:32 in the morning, March 5th, same day. Rosalio says, or option B is ... Well, I do know people. Who? What people do you know that could do bad things to Zach? And are those people to blame for your disappearance? If you know people, you might be in a bad situation yourself. Anyways, so Sadie responds, oh, I've definitely thought about plan B, LOL. Shouldn't be this hard, and I'm so mad he doesn't care what it does to the kids, she says, acting all victimized. And then Rosalio says, that's why plan B might work, just needs a little reminder. And Sadie responds, hee hee. And these. More messages between Sadie and Rosalio threatening Zach. The Poppy no snitch text message string, which I hate that phrase, Poppy, whatever, when people say like Poppy no snitch, it annoys me. But anyways, so April 25th, 6:03 p.m., Sadie to Zach, maybe you can plan some more time stalking me and taking pictures of me in the privacy of my home. So she's saying, I have this highlighted for a reason, because she's saying plan more time stalking me and pictures of me. So Zach is like adamant to police that there's no pictures of Sadie and Rosalio on his phone. And I don't believe there ever were any, or video, or nothing. Like nothing was ever shown in court. So I don't know if that was ever, maybe held back for whatever reason. But we haven't heard, as far as I know, that there was ever any evidence on a phone of Zach's that he actually was taking video or pictures of Sadie. But I think, and I highlighted this because I have an inkling that she may have been putting these in the form of texts to pin stalking on him, even though he wasn't stalking them. I have a feeling she might have been orchestrating this, saying all these things, saying, oh, my daughter told me this and blah, blah, blah. And she's feeding things to her daughter, and she's saying, oh, yeah, Zach is stalking me. But at this point, she doesn't have any proof. So her proof is telling Rosalio in text messages. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, she's making it up. But to prove that it's happening, she'd be like, see, I told Rosalio here on this date that he's been stalking me, or whatever. Or I told Zach, stop stalking me and taking pictures of me. And I do say this also because, or I underlined the me and the us, because Sadie's next, a few minutes after Sadie texts this to Zach, stop stalking me, taking pictures of me, she goes on to tell Rosalio he took video of us on the couch. So first of all, she's changing her pronoun. It's going from me to us, and it's going from pictures to video. So which is it, Sadie? Which is it there? Caught you in a lie. What is it? So she's telling him video of us on the couch and me in just my tank top, and us going into the bedroom, then showed my daughter. She told me everything. And then, whoops, that could be a lie too. I mean, she could be putting it all in text format to someone so that it is in writing, and she could show the police, look, I was telling Rosalio all the way back on April 25th that he was stalking me. Just a thought. So Rosalio to Sadie, are you effing serious? That's enough to call the cops. What's his effing address? And then he says, what a pathetic piece of shit. And then Sadie responds, I'm sick. I'm not sure what to do. He says, Rosalio continues, what is he trying to accomplish? And then later in the conversation, some time passes. She's talking to more people in between. But then later at 8:20, she says to Rosalio, or she responds to Rosalio, Well, I guess if he has your info, you should have his. And then 821, Sadie to Rosalio. Note, this text is deleted from Sadie's phone but present on Rosalio's records. So Sadie sends Zachariah Anderson lives in Mequon to Rosalio. It's on Rosalio's phone, his call log, but it's not on Sadie's because she deletes a bunch of things and we're going to find out what in just a minute. So 822, Rosalio responds, already figured it out. I did a little Facebook investigations. As somebody pointed out, Zach didn't have Facebook. So how did they find where Zach lived? It's just interesting how, what was he doing? Where did he actually find Zach's info? Because while Sadie's off talking to, I think she was talking to Rebecca or something on the phone, and then I can't remember who it was. So she's talking, so between these texts, she's talking to somebody and, dealing with something else. And then finally, Rosalio is probably like in the background looking for Zach's info. Somehow he finds it. I don't know how. He says Facebook. But then also Sadie responds with his town, just the town that he lives in. And then Sadie says in response, I just went effing off the rails on him a few minutes ago. Okay, so she was talking to Zach. And then 841, Rosalio to Sadie. But this is not on Sadie's phone. Again, it's on Rosalio's records. That's what I'm going to do. I've already reached out to old friends. I can be hands-free from this situation. That was Rosalio to Sadie, 841. Deleted from Sadie's phone, but not Rosalio's. He goes on to say, just a good old ass whooping, maybe broken leg or something. And then, so 844, on Rosalio's records only, a text message was received and read from Sadie to Rosalio. No content available for timestamp. This timestamp does not appear on Sadie's records at all. So we don't know what the text was. But it was probably something to confirm. In my opinion, it might have been like some kind of GIF or picture saying like yes or go ahead or who knows what it said, but something in that regard. I'm speculating it was probably something in the affirmative of go ahead and break his ass or break his leg, whoop his ass is what I meant to say. But anyways, all right, so continuing on again, on Rosalio's records, text message received and read, no content available. Or was that what we just read? I don't know. I think that's what we just read. So then 840, yeah, that one we just read. 848, Rosalio to Sadie. Again, this is not in Sadie's phone, but in Rosalio's phone. It says, then delete those texts from your phone. And Sadie responds back, what texts? With 3 question marks. So, whoops. So obviously, she she deleted the text that he said, and then she's playing dumb, like, what texts? Rosalio, this is from Rosalio's records, again, because we don't have it in Sadie's records, because she deleted it. And then Rosalio to Sadie says, for the record, only if you say it's okay. And then she says, thank you for that. So I don't know what maybe she wasn't in the affirmative in the picture, but potentially something along the lines of that she's all for it. Anyways, next we've got Rosalio saying to Sadie, I don't want to make things worse for you. I just wanted to make sure if it's still the same price. What? The same price? What? How did I miss that before? Rosalio to Sadie, I don't want to make things worse for you. I just wanted to make sure if it's still the same price. So he reached out to the friends to find out if it's still the same price to kick someone's ass. Is that what I'm getting at? That's what I think they're getting at. All right. So So Rosalio to Sadie says, again, this text is not on Sadie's phone, but it's on Rosalio's. He finds the address and says, "Is that accurate?" Whoops. I gotta remember when I do the scrolly thing on the mouse, it changes the picture, or changes the slide. Sorry. Um, so he asks, "Is this accurate?" Again, this is on Rosalio's and not Sadie's records. And then she says, "Poppy no snitch." And then she continues on saying, "I'm not allowing it either. He's going to find out." Meaning, like, she's not allowing this garbage in her life, like this drama, whatever. She's gonna make him pay. That's what I take from that. And finally, the "I'm out of it now" texts between. So this is I believe were we in the 25th? So now we're in the next day. Yes. So the next day, they're still talking about it. Sadie, this is the next day at 8:58 p.m. Sadie to Rosalio, "I'm effing pissed. He removed your personal information from your car." This is after she told him that he did. Whether he did or didn't, we don't know. And we're getting it from someone who I don't think is the most reliable source. So we're not really sure. But even if he did, it's not the level of the crime of what he's being charged for in this. Anyways, so Sadie to Rosalio says, "My daughter wants to meet your kids before you, lol." So she's talking to Sadie about this guy, obviously, which she denied doing on the stand, but that's a lie. So 9 p.m., Rosalio to Sadie says, "I'm not worried about it." So again, proof that they are not scared, they're not threatened, they're going to take action on it. So they, to me, did not prove stalking in any way. I mean, there's some things like borderline, he's crossing boundaries, he's crossing some lines, but they have a relationship. So I think, it's safe to say she might be stringing him along still during this whole thing. Anyways, so this is the "I'm out of it now" texts the next day. Sadie to Rosalio, "I'm fucking pissed, da 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 da." He says, "I'm not worried about it. He can have all my info." Okay. "Take all the info out of my car. I'm not worried about it. I know people." And then he says, "I want him to know exactly who beat his ass up." Rosalio to Sadie continues, "I care about you and don't want to cause more problems, but I think I'm going to pay him a visit. There needs to be consequences for his actions." And then Sadie says, "I'm out of it now. That crossed your boundaries. So I'm not doing this now. I'm out of it. You got what you need, and I don't want to hear any more about it." So then Sadie continues, "If some chick did that to me, I'd go check that shit too, honestly. Like, he could be shitty to me, but he has no reason to go after you." Rosalio says, "No, he can't be shitty to you either." And then at 9:29 p.m., Rosalio's phone navigates to Zach's address on the Waze app. So he drove out to Zach's that night after all this. So who's being threatened in this situation? Is it Zach or is it Rosalio? You tell me. Number 11. 11? Yes, 11. 12 was messages between Sadie, and Rosalio. Number 11 is witness statements corroborating Zach's account of Sadie playing games with him and stringing him along. So, this is Joshua Anderson, Zach's brother. One of his statements to police, or during his statement to police, Joshua identified himself as Zach's brother, blah, 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 blah. He stated he drove to Zach's house, but Zach was not there because he was already in custody. Josh stated Josh stated Sadie jerks Zach around with custody and then they have been off and on for years. He stated Zach still loves Sadie but doesn't get sad over it. He stated Sadie had a new boyfriend and Zach told him he was not a good guy or something. I think it said a decent guy. And then that's pretty much it. I mean, so that's one person corroborating it. But they didn't want to hear that. Next is Solomon Anderson, also Zach's brother. He states Solomon stated Sadie isn't stable and has falsely accused Zach of many things throughout the relationship, so they disagree frequently. Solomon stated he did not know Rosalio, but Zach had mentioned a guy Sadie had been seeing because he was upset about his children being around other men, which is consistent with what Zach said in his interview. It's consistent with how Zach has been behaving. If he wants to learn about this guy that Sadie wants to bring around their kids, and she's being so deceptive about it and not telling him anything about it, he has a right to find out who she is bringing into his children's lives. And you know what? I do want to say too that like Solomon and Josh, their statements and everyone who made statements were very honest and like they would say, yeah, they disagreed. Like, okay, that doesn't mean Zach did something to her boyfriend. If they were trying to cover for Zach and Sadie, they should be like, oh no, they had a great relationship. They just, drifted apart and they're dating other people now, but they don't even whatever, no big deal. They had a great split. They did it, no hard feelings. You know what I'm saying? Like they would have made up something better than, oh no, they fought. They had a tumultuous relationship. She would lie about stuff. I mean, that is corroborating Zach's side of what happened. But anyways, the next person to corroborate Zach's account is Zenith Anderson. And again, she's not like all pro Zach either, because in her statement she says, she states she lives in Texas and arrived in town on the birthday of Zach's daughter, Owe, and attended a birthday party for her where Owe told her that she went to Sadie's one night with Zach and saw Sadie's boyfriend there. She stated that while she was at Sadie's for the birthday party, Owe told her not to sit on the couch because Sadie's boyfriend put boogers on it. So she's corroborating things that have been happening. She states that she spoke with Sadie at the party, and Sadie asked her if she knew anything about Zach's stalking her, and Zenith didn't know anything about that. And then she also stated that Sadie denied having a boyfriend or, dating other people. And it was only after the boyfriend went missing that Sadie brought up dating anyone to her at all. Now, I can see not wanting to bring up dating, but according to Sadie, she's all close with what's his face, Rosalio. Sorry, I didn't mean to say what's his face, but it's just my brain when I can't think of something. She was saying she was all close with him, and then they really only went on a couple dates or a handful of dates, and he was seeing multiple women, so we don't know. Anyways, she denied having a boyfriend. She stated she last spoke with Zach on 5/19/2020, and there was no talk about Sadie's boyfriend. She stated she would be surprised if Zach would ever involve the tree farm in anything. Number 10, cryptic texts between Sadie and Rebecca. Rebecca, the best friend of Sadie. Phone call has been placed. So on May 14th, remember, Rosalio goes missing 17th and 18th, and he's reported missing the 19th. So 5 days from here, from this text string between Rebecca and Sadie. Rebecca calls Sadie, but the call is missed. Sadie then texts Rebecca a couple minutes later. She says, he's hacking into my phone or something. My daughter just told me he hacked into her school Chromebook and I can't prove it is the problem. So how? How is he hacking into people's phones and Chromebooks from afar? Is he like this master forensic data hacker or something? No. He works for AT&T, but he's not like he doesn't know how to hack stuff. All right, so at 2:34, then Rebecca responds saying, well, this is where your daughter needs to stand up and tell the police these things and they can look into it. And then Rebecca says, phone call has been placed. So she placed a phone call. We don't know what, but it's very cryptic. Phone call has been placed. Rebecca to Sadie again says, all I was told is it will be again and you will not know when, where, or how. Call me in 1 week. Rebecca to Sadie, it will begin. So not be again, it will begin. So let's reread that saying, so it's like she's correcting herself. Although on the stand she didn't know if she was correcting herself. She didn't know what she was saying. Basically, she thought, she was very confusing in her testimony, saying, oh no, it was all me talking, but I was told this. So why is it saying I was told? But then that's her message to Sadie and she can't remember it. So it was not explained on the stand at all. I still have a lot of questions about this. So let's reread that as with this correction. So phone call has been placed. All I was told is it will begin and you will not know when, where, or how. Call me in 1 week. What will begin in 1 week? That's a good question. And then Rebecca calls Sadie and they talk for approximately 20 minutes. Or a little less. So, very cryptic. All right, next, OA and Sadie's testimony don't add up. And that is, this is number 9, on my list. OA and Sadie's testimony don't add up. So we've gone through these pictures before, but let's look at them one more time. So this is Sadie's home, right in here, this area with the red flag. And her living room windows are over here. Okay, in this purple. And this is another person's unit. This is another unit. So I think that's another unit, yeah. So just here's her place. There's a bar here. You can't see it. I cut it off, trying to fit it onto this page. But there's a bar here. So we're in the parking lot of the bar here. These are all parking spaces. Probably pretty empty when Zach supposedly came over at like 1, 2, 3 in the morning. Nobody even knows the time because they're back and forth on the time. But anyways, so there's large bushes here. This whole thing is large bushes. And then supposedly if Zach parked in the parking lot of the bar right here, OA would never see her or see him get out of the car and go to the front window that's facing the opposite way. It's not facing the driveway or the parking lot of the bar. So if he did go up to her window, how would OA see any of that? And then this is where OA testified Zach pulled into the second time and then rang the doorbell and sped off, which also doesn't make sense. But this is for reference so you can see. Again, Sadie's front window not facing the bar. So if Sadie's front window is facing out this way, how would OA have seen him? He would have had to walk through the bushes or around the bushes and get there. And if I don't know how thick the bushes are, and even if they aren't very thick, like who would want to walk through the bush? I don't know. But that would have had to have happened in order for her to see Zach go up to the window. So this is the other driveway. So there was the driveway right in front of her unit here, but then there's a driveway over here, which it does kind of look like they connect, but I don't think they do. This is not Sadie's unit. Sadie's unit is on the other side of this unit. And this is where Zach supposedly put his car and took off the second time. So again, we're looking at it from another angle. Sadie's front door looks out this way on the street. Okay? And then the bushes, they look pretty thick to me. We wouldn't be walking through the bushes there. Even in the wintertime, if the leaves are gone, because, we're talking March, they probably don't have their leaves at that time, but still full of branches that you would cut yourself on if you walked through the bushes. So it doesn't make sense. So what to consider regarding their testimony? So OA testified that Zach took her to Sadie's home in the very dark hours on the night of April 24th to, quote, spy on Sadie and Rosalio. This is according to OA's testimony, which has been, I think, in my opinion, tainted because she has been living under the roof of Sadie this whole time while Zach's been in prison, and she's getting basically influenced by Sadie's own recollection and ways that she explains the situation. And that can affect OA and how she remembers the situation. So anyways, nothing on her, like maybe she's lying. I mean, she could be lying, but she could also legitimately be having these memories implanted in her from someone else. Adults can do that to their children. All right, so she stated that if they want to manipulate them, this is what I mean. Like, the way that you act and behave and, all of that as an adult, kids see that and they glom onto that and they can act in similar ways to get the affection or attention of that parent. So if a parent is very anti Zach, anti your dad, then the kid's gonna be like, oh, well, my dad is awful, and my mom keeps saying all these awful things about my dad. They must be true, because why would my mom lie to me about that? And, it really messes with the kid's head. All right, so anyways, moving on. OA stated that Zach had parked in the bar parking lot and backed into a parking space. So if he backed into the space, then that's even more that even helps the defense even more, because if he backed into the space, OA would be facing the bar and not Sadie's front door. So even if he backed up into a space right here, her face is facing the bar. Let's look at that aerial. So if he backs up into a spot here, she's going to be facing this way and not the window. So how does that make sense? It doesn't. She said she stayed in the car. She stayed in the front seat of the car and watched him go up to the living room window. She's facing the bar at this point. She said she saw him put a recording device in the air conditioning unit attached to the living room. OA then testifies that while leaving, Zach then pulls the car into the second driveway, gets out of the car again to go take a picture of Rosalio's license plate and steal some papers out of his car. She then says he rings the doorbell before running back to the car to the driveway, to that second space in the driveway. Sadie testifies then that she heard the doorbell ring and she looks out of the window and sees a black car speeding away, assuming that it's Zach's. So, could this be some kind of scheme that she made up to make Zach appear like he's really stalking her? I don't know. So, what does the evidence show in this case? If you look at the maps, or the images that I showed you, sorry, the images, that's what they mean. The living room window is oriented to the exact opposite side of the house as the bar parking lot, with lots of large bushes in between. So it is impossible for Owe to have seen Zach go up to the front or go up to the window from the car. Even if she wasn't facing the bar, because she says that they pulled in backwards, even if she was facing forward, she would not see Zach going up to the window from the car. It's impossible, let alone be able to see in detail what he would have been doing there. So how would she know he put a recording device in the air conditioning unit? Unless he told her that, I mean, she would have had to have heard that from his mouth, not just see him put something in the fumbling with the air conditioning unit. So the front door is tucked back completely out of the sight line of the second driveway because of the other attached unit jutting out so far. So we saw pictures of that. You can't see. So it would be impossible again for Owe to have seen Zach ring the doorbell from that vantage point. So let's go back to that. So if Owe's sitting in this driveway, you cannot see. This is not Sadie's unit. So Sadie's unit is back behind here. So this is this other unit that juts out. Okay. So Sadie's unit's back here. And you would have to. There's no way that you could see him ring the doorbell. No way. All right. Also, because of a lack of sightline from the door to the second driveway, plus the fact that Zach's typical route back home would lead from the front door, not crossing past it again, it is impossible for Sadie to have seen Zach's vehicle from the front window. So even it's impossible for Owe to have seen Zach ring the doorbell, but it's also impossible from that vantage point for Sadie to have been able to see his car on that driveway, and on his route he would have driven past her to go home. All right, so what does this mean? There is no way to reconcile these impossibilities with what Sadie and Owe testified to, other than that they were either complete fabrications of fact or partial truths that were, for whatever reason, embellished. Owe was 11 or 12 years old at the time that all of this occurred, so there is a high likelihood, based upon her age and the way that the brain functions during that stage of development, that she is misremembering. See, like I said, she could be misremembering. She could be remembering it with her mom's twist and her mom's perspective on the situation. She could flat out be telling lies for her mom. Who knows? She has to live with her mom still, so she has to get along with her. So if getting along with her means bashing my dad, hey, maybe I'll try that, because otherwise, she's mad at me or something, So who knows how kids think about that stuff, but they want to please their parents regardless. No matter what age you are, you want some recognition and pride from your parents once in a while. All right, so anyways, so she could be misremembering completely impossible details that line up exactly with what Sadie remembers, like ringing the doorbell. Anyways, if this event does show an indication of false memories, what other memories does she have that are false and only came from many years of discussions around these events? Again, this opens the door to the idea that much of what Owe says she remembers from that time period is false. So again, much of what Owe says she remembers from this time period is false. There is specific evidence on this at trial. She was, I guess you impeach, yeah, you impeach a 12-year-old, you have to, but I guess she was impeached. I think at the time she might have been 13 or 14 when she was on the stand here, but so she is able to state that the exact specificity of how many marijuana plants Zach had was alleged to have had, but she was unable to even identify a picture of ganja. She couldn't. She didn't know what it looked like, but she knew how many bags of it or how many plants of it he had at home. She claims in testimony that she went down to Zach's basement because one of her brothers dropped a Lego down the stairs and she went with him because the basement was creepy. But in her original police statement, she said her brother was playing down there because he liked it. So she changed her statement twice there. In her original police statement given on May 19th, she states that she never saw any weapons, any I don't want to say that word, GUNs. She's It was stipulated testimony by Detective Lauren Onschutz on day 14th, that she never saw it. But nearly 3 years later on the stand, she claims that she was threatened with it. She claimed on the stand, out of context, there was no question asked, and she said she was threatened with a gun. They had to strike that from testimony, which I think is also misleading because she never said who had threatened her, and people could have inferred or assumed that it was Zach who threatened her. Especially when they said strike that testimony, it makes you think like, oh, why? Anyways, this would indicate that the memory is a false memory that was implanted through suggestion during the numerous conversations that she had with Sadie, police, and the prosecution. Remember, OA had no contact with Zach after his arrest, so she only hears about and or talks through these events with people trying to find evidence of Zach's guilt, which leaves a very high likelihood of suggestion. Very high. Very, 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 very high. When all these people around you want you to believe that this father of yours is a bad man, you start to believe it because you want to please all the people in your life. And Zach's gone, so whatever. He's not around, so he's not going to see that I'm turning on him. Anyways, but he did because she testified. All right, so through early adolescence, children's ability to remember exact details is poor relative to adults, which makes them especially prone to false memories aspiring from suggestion. And that is from Charles Brainerd, PhD of Cornell University, who is a professor of psychology. All right. Continuing on with why OA and Sadie's testimony doesn't add up. However, Sadie is an adult with a stronger memory capacity, so misremembering, although not impossible, is far less likely. She claimed from her very first statements to police that she had seen what she assumed was Zach's vehicle drive away. So it is not a distortion in memory that happened over time. Sadie has a strong motive to lie and or embellish truths because it is her goal to get Zach arrested on stalking charges. Right, and we just went through more reasons why she's angry at Zach and how she's stringing him along and all sorts of things. That was number 13. If you missed it, go on back and start from number 13. All right, so she felt like her claim wasn't strong enough to get the job done in the past, as she indicates by stating that police previously didn't do anything and denied her a restraining order. Therefore, it is highly possible that she could have chosen to embellish or make up details that would make her claims seem more valid. Like I was saying, it could be that she's texting Rosalio saying, oh, he's stalking us, he's taking pictures or videos of us on the couch. And yet she's saying to him, like, don't take pictures of me. Don't stalk me. You're taking pictures of me. And then she goes to Rosalio going, oh, no, he's taking video of us on the couch and doing things. And being all, victimizing about it. She's acting like the victim in the situation. All right, so, quote, I had contacted Germantown Police Department with my concerns about the stalking behaviors. They told me they were not able to do much unless I caught him in the act. End quote. She told this to News Graphic. So in her very own words, her previous concerns of stalking were purely anecdotal and she had no proof to concern officials enough to produce an arrest or restraining order. So all the things that Zach has done has never gone, if Zach has done any of these things, however Zach has been behaving, it's never gone above and beyond. So at this point, now she knows she's got to get him in the act. So could it be she's making up texts or making up these allegations and putting it in texts so that she has this proof to back it up? Therefore, she had to be sure that she found ways to catch him in the act this time, right? So stating that he rang the doorbell when she saw his car drive away, stating that him accidentally dropping his phone in her car was an intentional plant for tracking purposes. So doing all that could be, why she may have taken the phone. She could have stolen the phone. She could have had one of the kids take the phone for her. We don't know. But how that phone got into Zach's car, we do not know. I mean, into Sadie's car. Number 9. Oh, still number 9, sorry. Number 9, continuing on. OA and Sadie's testimony don't add up because regardless of the reason for all of these factual errors that they have presented in their testimony, regardless, all testimony of both Sadie and OA should be scrutinized. If you watch with careful consideration, you'll notice that none of their testimony has a single thing to do with the disappearance of Rosalio Gutierrez Jr., and much of it is either false or purely based on assumptions, hearsay, and irregular information. So it is very circumstantial. All of the evidence in this case is circumstantial. And there's no evidence tying Zach to anything. So it's all circumstantial. Number 8, narrowly focused investigation. So I took apart pieces of the police report. This was a police report done by Nicholas Benvenuto. Hold on one second. My dog needs a comfy spot and I gotta readjust all my stuff. Hold on. Yikes. Come on. Go. Alright, so Nicholas Benvenuto's police report, and this was done on the 19th, so the very same day that Sadie reports Rosalio missing. Hold on, I'm gonna get readjusted now. Damn dog. She's freaking irritating. Okay. Just stay under the blanket. But then she gets hot, and then she gets out, and then she's gonna come back under, and then she hears a noise, and she's gotta bark, and it's just very frustrating and annoying. I apologize. Alright. I'm putting my frustrations out there for you guys, but you don't need to hear that. Sorry. All right, so narrowly focused investigation. Same day Rosalio is reported missing. This is coming from the guy who interviewed Sadie. the police officer who interviewed Sadie, and I just took out the portion that we care about. He said, this is in his words, so no statements or anything that were signed by the witnesses. This is his reiteration of what Sadie told him. So it should be noted that Sadie also made a comment that her ex-boyfriend was highly upset that she was seeing Rosalio. She she stated that her ex, unknown name, had stolen Rosalio's registration from his car recently. She stated, "I'm not saying he did something, but he could have. I provided this info to the Detective Bureau. This ends my involvement in the case." So this guy takes this statement, and basically I think the cops ran with that, and they were like, "Oh, well, here's our guy. We don't need to do any investigative work because she just told us there's our guy." That's not how investigations are supposed to work, but what do I know? I'm not a cop. So, continuing on, all resources available for the investigation from May 19th to December 11th were focused on Zach and Zach alone. And I believe it is because of this statement of Sadie saying, "I'm not saying he did something, but he could have." Those are pictures of Zach when he's first in custody. They take pictures of his hands. He has no cuts, nothing on his hands to indicate that he was in some kind of altercation. Also, another reason why we know it's a narrowly focused investigation is because the lead detective, Lauren Anschutz, who you see on the screen right now, admitted Nicole Mueller is a genius defense attorney, and she got him to admit on the stand that he did not investigate any other suspects besides Zach. So we know it was a narrowly focused investigation. Number 7. This piggybacks on number 8 because, well, you'll see, because Zach was the only person who was investigated, but Rosalio's lifestyle, habits, his girlfriends, his friends, his habits, all of that were never looked into. And first of all, this is another multi-parter. So we know that he had some money woes. So on the stand, Rosalio's mother, Celia Patterson, testified that she helped her son with paying his bills, paying his rent, giving him money for things. So we know that he had some money issues. I don't know to what extent. We do know he owed some people money. So where was his money going? Why did he have such money issues? What was going on? So we do know that on May 14th, Rosalio withdraws $700 from his shared checking account with his mother. This is the 14th. This is same day the phone call has been placed. Text went out. Just so you know where we are. Same time frame, same everything. And remember, Rosalio was asking about price, wanting to know about price. So I wonder if that has something to do with it. The very next day, Rosalio returns to the bank and gets $300 out of his checking account. And we also know that Rosalio and his friend Michael Campbell were having a text conversation regarding the money that Rosalio owes him. So we know Rosalio owes Michael Campbell money. We know Mom's helping him pay for rent and bills and whatnot. We know that he took out, in the span of 2 days, $1,000 in cash from his checking account with his mother. And now here at 6:03 p.m. on the 15th, Rosalio to Michael Campbell, "Do you want me to come pay you before I get my son and shower?" And Michael to Rosalio says, "No, it's okay. I can wait." So we know he's got some money issues. To what extent, we do not know. I wonder if there's gambling or anything like that involved, or some kind of illegal something's involved, because usually, when you've got, well, not usually, I shouldn't say usually, but it seems suspicious to me is all I'm saying. But he is a contractor, for all I know. Like, he might not be working consistent jobs, so that could be another reason. All right, so continuing on with number 7, Rosalio was never looked into, communicating with multiple women. Multiple. So, on February 13th, we know that he meets Sadie Beecham. We also know that he meets a woman named Kim Lavora on that same day, on February 13th, 2020. So that's 2 women so far. Next, we know April 25th, Eileen Knoll, an ex-girlfriend and current friend/employer of Rosalio's, testified that he went over to her house sometime this day and told her about an incident with Zach and his vehicle that happened supposedly the day before. So that's the whole, did he take his registration and ring the doorbell and whatnot. But I only bring this up because Eileen Knoll is an ex-girlfriend and a current friend/employer. I'm not saying she did it, but she's an ex. I'm just saying, like, she's the possibility. People in her circle are a possibility. All of these people are possibilities. I'm not putting the blame on any of them. I'm just saying they're people that should have been looked into more because law enforcement didn't do their job. So next up, we have another girl from Facebook dating, Narita Macias. And as you can see in this text message, he asks her on May 17th, remember the night he goes missing, or supposedly goes missing according to the state's timeline, 6:24 p.m., he says to Narita, what are you doing, or what are your plans for tonight? She says, nada, check my emails. And then he says, would you be interested in meeting up? It is late and a Sunday, so I won't be hurt if you don't want to. I would totally understand, but I would like to meet you. She says, of course. So that's how many women now? Rosalio also had 2 children with 2 separate women. So that's 2 more women in his life. This brings us to it, and that's them. I think this is Christy Raddatz. I can't remember which one's which. Sorry. Nor can I remember the other one's name. So there's Christy Raddatz, Ortiz, and someone else. Oh gosh, this is gonna bother me why I can't think of her name. I'm sorry. I apologize. I should have had it on here. These 2 both testified on behalf of the state, basically saying we have not heard from Rosalio ever since May 17th, after he dropped their kids off, because he dropped each one off that night to their separate locations. But what I'm getting to is this brings us to a total of 6 other possible suspects. Just them alone could be suspects. All of them could be suspects. But not only that, so the 6 women in Rosalio's life could be suspects, but not only that, they're boyfriends, husbands, exes. So let's just assume each one of them has an ex-boyfriend. Just assume that. Every one of them has dated someone in their life. So that is at least 6 exes, including Zach. So including Zach, we have at least 5 other people. Or when we exclude Zach, we have at least 5 other possible people. But let's also think, like, well, they might have multiple men in their lives. What if, they might have a husband and they're lying to their husband and going on Facebook dating and meeting someone, I mean, any possibility could occur with 6 women and their husbands, spouses, jealous friends, whoever, like somebody in their life could be a suspect too, if not them themselves. We also have best friend Michael Campbell, who we know owes money to Rosalio. So these are all suspects, guys, that were never looked into. Other possible people that he might owe money to. So we know he had money issues. Who did he owe money to? Was it anyone else besides Michael Campbell? What about the old friends that he contacted to mess up Zach? Maybe he owed them money. Maybe that's the reason. Like, hey man, we're not going to do this for you. You still owe us. I don't know. I'm speculating totally. I like to look at all possibilities. And that is something that I think more creators are starting to do now, is to be open to the possibilities that, it might be exactly what it seems, or it might not. You have to look deeper. All right, so the old friends that he contacted to mess up Zach could be a possible suspect in this. You have to understand too that there's a possibility he's on all these dating apps. He's on Facebook. He's meeting all these other women. There could be other women that we don't know about, or there could even be a possible catfish. Somebody who was pretending to be a woman to get to someone to do whatever crimes that they want to do. You never know why catfish do what they do, but it could be somebody who was trying to catfish him and trying to get information. We don't know, because police didn't do their job. Or there could be other men in Sadie's life. Who else could she have been dating? Was she dating other guys? We know Rosalio. We know she was stringing Zach along while she was dating Rosalio. So were there other men that she met on dating apps? I really want to know. It was never brought up in trial, but I'm going to assume she was talking to more than one guy from Facebook dating. So she might not have met any others, but I don't know. We don't know, because that was never brought up in trial. So these are just speculations, obviously, but these are other possible potential suspects that police should have looked into more. They should have looked at these possibilities. What do you guys think? What am I missing? What other possibilities could there have been as to Rosalio's lifestyle, habits? Like I said, gambling. Maybe he was into some substance moving. I don't know. Like, we don't know. Maybe he was doing some things that were little suspect that never came out in trial. So let me know what you think of these possibilities, of your own possibilities. Who wasn't looked into in this whole case that I didn't cover yet. All right, so we didn't get into him yet, but this is number 6 on my list. Michael Campbell had means, motive, and opportunity. He sure did. So we read all this already in the Denny's motion, but we're going to read again some of it. So although Mr. Anderson was charged with these offenses, the following evidence implicates Michael Campbell. So Michael Campbell was friends and work associate of Mr. Rosalio Gutierrez. According to several sources, they did contracting work together. According to individuals who know Mr. Campbell owed Mr. Gutierrez a large amount of money. We do not know how much, but it is so much so that Mr. Campbell was in fear of losing his house in order to pay Mr. Gutierrez the money that was owed to him. Again, what are they doing? Why did they owe so much money? Is it just because of contract work that Rosalio owed him money for, or was there something more nefarious that was going on that might lead to some clues as to why Rosalio went missing? On the 14th, Mr. Gutierrez withdrew $700. On the 15th, he withdrew the $300. There is nothing in discovery that established Mr. Gutierrez had gone anywhere from May 15th to the 17th and spent the $1,000 that he had in his possession. The contents of Mr. Gutierrez's wallet was recovered in the freezer, remember? In the freezer of his apartment along with his phone, but there was no U.S. currency located in his wallet, the freezer, or anywhere in his apartment. Mr. Campbell's phone records indicate that he was there. It is known that on May 18th, the day after Mr. Gutierrez is allegedly unalived, Mr. Campbell texted his mom and asked her if she could drive him to two separate banks. I wonder if the totals of any deposits he made might equal $1,000. Was that even looked into? Mr. Gutierrez's phone records indicate that he was going to see Mr. Campbell on the 17th. Further, Mr. Campbell's GPS data from a Cellbrite download indicates he was at 3709 15th Street, which is Gutierrez's apartment, on May 17th. His GPS puts him there on the 17th. Mr. Campbell also interjected himself into the police investigations multiple times. First, Mr. Campbell arrived on scene on May 19th, 2020, almost at the exact time that law enforcement arrived on scene. How he knew to be there or that law enforcement would be on the scene is unknown, but certainly perplexing. Second, Mr. Campbell and his friend Brandon Hendrickson then traveled to Mr. Anderson's residence in Mequon, Wisconsin. When he arrived at Mr. Anderson's home, Mr. Anderson called 911, given that there were two unknown individuals snooping around his property and yelling for Mr. Anderson to come out of his house. Mr. Campbell and his friend left the residence, but law enforcement later told him that he needs to stop interfering with the investigation. It's pretty bad when law enforcement tells you you've got to stop interfering, man. You're messing with our investigation. Yikes. Tammy Milliger told law enforcement that she heard people talking about Mr. Gutierrez and that these individuals mentioned that they believed the people who did construction work with Mr. Gutierrez had went to the apartment and ended his life. So people, multiple people, not just one. So who else was Gutierrez, Rosalio working with? That's another possible lead that I didn't even think about, was like his possible and family members too. What if he had family members that were into stuff? I don't know. Cousins that were into dealing. I have no idea, but I'm just saying things were not looked into. His work associates were not looked into well. So if he had other contractors that he was working with, other individuals, that definitely should have been looked into, because now we're getting this statement from Tammy Milliger saying that multiple people were there, at least two. Ms. Milliger furthered that they mentioned Mr. Gutierrez was rolled up in a carpet, and taken to Pheasant Run landfill in Kenosha County. John Hunt, another individual that comes into play in the story, he knows Mr. Campbell. He told law enforcement that a few days after Mr. Gutierrez went missing, he saw Mr. Campbell and noticed that Mr. Campbell had cut his hair and was all cleaned up. So he changed his appearance. According to Mr. Hunt, this was unlike Mr. Campbell because Mr. Campbell was always meticulous with his hair and appearance. I think he means was not always meticulous. All right, so Mr. Hunt noted that this same day, Mr. Campbell had items in his truck, including a rolled-up carpet. Mr. Campbell said he was taking the stuff to Pheasant Run landfill. Mr. Hunt had asked Mr. Campbell for the carpet because he could use it on his back patio area. Mr. Hunt also said it would help Mr. Campbell because it would lighten his load for the dump, which in turn would cost less then for Mr. Campbell to offload it. Mr. Hunt said Mr. Campbell was adamant that he could not take the carpet. Mr. Hunt thought that was odd. And on the stand, Michael Campbell, who you see right here, he said, who's bald, by the way, so how was he doing his hair before? Did he, like, clean up his hair? Did he, like, shave his head after the incident and start, cleaning up his beard or something? I have no idea. But anyways, so he was adamant he wouldn't take the carpet. On the stand, he said that the carpet was, like, full of dog urine or something, and that's why he couldn't take it. But he didn't say that definitively. He said it like it could be full of dirty things. Like, he's like, man, you don't want any, I'm sorry, I'm doing, like, doing his voice. Like, man, you don't want the carpet because it's full of dog urine or something. Like, it wasn't even, like, definitively. He's like, because I work in dirty places, it could be it could be filled with dog urine. That's how he worded it on the stand. Along those lines. Never, it wasn't like definitively it smelled. It was just, nah, you don't want it because it could have dirt on it or urine. All right, anyways, so from Mr. Campbell's Cellbrite download, there are messages where multiple people asked Mr. Campbell how he knew details about what had happened to Mr. Gutierrez, and that's because he showed up so fast. So Mr. Campbell told those individuals that he had been in contact with Sadie Beecham on the 19th of May, and that is how he knew what had happened and how he got the information about Mr. Anderson. However, his phone records do not reflect any communication with Miss Beecham. Further, Ms. Beecham's phone data show that she was never in contact with Mr. Campbell at any point in time. So there's a huge discrepancy. Here we see there is evidence that someone was in Mr. Gutierrez's apartment on May 18th, so the day after supposedly he went missing. From other evidence, it is evident that Mr. Anderson was not in Kenosha on May 18th, but Mr. Campbell was. So that's interesting. Although the quality is not the best, surveillance video obtained by law enforcement depicts several trucks driving on the 15th Street between 8 p.m. on May 17th to 2 a.m. on May 18th that match the type and color of Mr. Campbell's truck. To date, Mr. Campbell has not provided any information to law enforcement that would preclude his involvement. So these were the reasons why the defense put in a motion for it was a Denny motion to get Mr. Campbell looked at and to use him at trial. Like, you have to, in order to do a Denny motion, I went into the whole explanation. You have to like meet certain standards, and you have to show means, motive, opportunity, all that for another suspect to be brought in to be allowed to pin it on a third party, basically. All right. Hold on one second. I will be right back. Sorry about that. Dogs had to go out. We gotta make sure that they get their potty breaks. All right, so again, Mr. Campbell just was never looked at because the court denied the Denny motion. However, I do believe that they proved the means, motive, and opportunity, but for whatever reason, the court did not. So they were not allowed to bring in any third party as a... What is my dog barking at now? Hold on, let me go get them. Right. Sorry about that. Sorry. I apologize. Hopefully you could skip through if you're watching on the replay crew. I like to skip through and go fast on videos. All right, so number 5. Let's move on to number 5, Narita as an eyewitness. So we've already talked about Narita. She is a woman that met Rosalio over Facebook dating app, and away we go. So on May 17th, this is after he's already asked her to come over. They're making their plans and whatnot. Narita says, I'm going to shower now. I just got out of work. Give me around 8 p.m. He says, no worries. Take your time. He still has to drop off his daughter, and she lives 45 minutes away. Narita says, okay. They decide on 9 o'clock. So 9 will be safer than 8:30. Okay. And then he gives her his address. I mean, that is his address, 3709 15th Street, apartment 1B. That is the correct address. He sends it to her. He asks then, how far do you live from me? She texts a screenshot from Apple Maps showing a drive time of 19 minutes from her place to his location. So a location Milwaukee. Oh, it's a location Milwaukee, 19 minutes away. And she says, you're around the block, LOL. And he says, that's the wrong address. So she first gets an address that is in Milwaukee from Apple Maps when she puts the address in. But then he says, there's no north in my address. And he gives the full address to her. She then sends another screenshot from Apple Maps showing a drive time of 37 minutes from her to his address. And so she sends a screenshot of an Apple map to him with his own address. And he says, okay, see you soon. Like, wouldn't he correct her if it was the wrong address like he did? Wouldn't he correct her if it was, taking her to some other unit in his complex? Or wouldn't he say, like, hey, make sure when you get here, you go to this unit because this doesn't take you to the right unit or whatever, like, wouldn't he tell her instead of just, okay, see you soon? It must not be that difficult to get to. So, anyways, at 9, so remember, they said they were going to meet at 9 p.m. At 9:37, she texts him and says 5 minutes away. So she doesn't even say at any point in time, like, hey, I'm running late. Hey, I'm going to be there at 9:45. No, she sends him a text at 9:37 to say, I'm 5 minutes away. So I'm already 37 minutes late, but I'm 5 minutes away. Like, why would someone you don't even know? Like, that's just rude, first of all, that you're 45 minutes late and you didn't text to let me know that you were running late. But secondly, like, who does that? I don't know who does that. Narita does that. So Narita then at 9:43 she says, I'm here. A minute later she says, where do I park? At 9:52 she says, are you okay? Which is kind of weird. Like, I would have been like, hello? Like, I wouldn't be like, are you okay? Like, that wouldn't be my first thing to say. And then she says, I'm worried about you. Are you okay? At 10:05 when he doesn't respond. She hasn't even been there that long. She gets there at 9:43. At 10:05 she says, I'm worried about you. Are you okay? Why would she need to be worried about him? Did she do something? Is she the catfish? That maybe she came with a man and the man did something to Rosalio and she was the ploy. I don't know. I'm not saying that that's the case, but I'm saying it happens. It's possible. You know what I mean? So anyway, she says she's here. She's worried about him. And then at 9:10, Rosalio's phone changes orientation from portrait to landscape, which I believe might have been the moment when his phone went into the freezer. Somebody picking it up and putting it in there. But I do not know. And I don't know. I don't believe it was Zach. That's all I know. Okay, so Narita as a witness again. What to consider. State's witness Narita Macias originally provided a statement to Kenosha PD on May 20th, 2020, that she was supposed to be meeting up with Rosalio Gutierrez on the 17th, the alleged night of his disappearance. The state, she stated that she had shown up to Rosalio's apartment at 9:43 p.m. and had sat in her car waiting for a response from him until 10:18. Sorry, I had to yell at my dog because he's whining. It's not quite lunchtime yet. All right, so um, what did I say? She stated she had shown up at Rosalio's at 9:35. It was actually 9:43, and had sat in her car waiting until 10:18. In Narita's original statement, she stated that the only people she saw in the time frame when she was there was one, a heavy-set black female entering the apartment building carrying a bag, and two, a young Hispanic male described as being in his early 20s, clean cut with no facial hair and wearing a white t-shirt. She witnessed the Hispanic male come down the stairs from the second floor, look out the front windows, and then go back upstairs. He did this twice. After waiting 45 minutes for a response from Rosalio, she left. So who was that guy going up and down the stairs twice? But it's probably nobody. Or not relevant to our story, but still interesting. Did they ask? Did they look for these people? Probably not. Nearly 2 years after her original statement, Narita was called into District Attorney Michael Gravely's office to discuss her being a witness. She was then asked by the DA to show them where she was in relation to Rosalio's building on the night of the 17th. And she met the DA and the assistant DA, so Jessica Krasaric or something like that, at the apartment complex, and somehow during this unrecorded exchange, her story changed and they determined that she was in front of the wrong building. They determined that. How do they fucking know? Sorry, excuse my French. How do they know that she was at the wrong building? So during her testimony about this exchange, she was adamant that she was in the wrong building in the first place. So she's saying on the 17th she was at the wrong building, although we don't know that for sure. And she used Apple Maps, which would have taken her to the correct address at the time. But anyways, she states it was dark and raining outside and that she never looked at the building number to confirm which building she was in front of. She also provides testimony that she moved her car to 4 different parking spots while waiting, one of which is directly in front of the building. She maintained that she did see the 2 people described above, or that we just talked about. All right, so what does the evidence show? It shows that Rosalio's apartment 1B is inside of the 8-unit apartment building. Inside the entrance, inside the entrance scene, immediately to the right is a set of stairs leading to the second floor. Rosalio's apartment is the first unit on the right underneath that set of stairs. The apartment building number 3709 can be seen directly above the entrance to the apartment building with a light above it to illuminate it at nighttime, which I'll show you in a second, the images. There is a panel of cross-hatch windows directly to the left of the main door as seen above. Looking in these windows from the outside would provide a view of the stairs leading to the second floor. So as you can see, there's the apartment building number very prominent. You can clearly see it from this picture, which would be someone standing probably close to the sidewalk or parking lot. You can see it. Now this is at nighttime. You can see it is 3709. Clearly you can see that. Here's the door, clearly, and here is the window. You can clearly see if people are going up and down the stairs. So, for her to say, I don't know if I was at the right building or not, is completely and not credible to me. So what does this mean? Although Narita claims that she never looked at the apartment number at night, or on the night of the 17th, the evidence shows that it would be difficult to miss, especially if she was parked in a spot directly in front of the building, as she claims. So the number sign is illuminated by the light above it. So even though it was dark and raining, the building number itself should have obviously stood out in the darkness. As you can see, it stands out. The likelihood that she would be able to describe that the young Hispanic gentleman had a clean cut face, but that she didn't see the apartment number is just unbelievable. So I don't think that that's credible at all. Narita had also changed her testimony based on the private meeting with the DA, which raises a few concerns. She testified that the DA gave her the address with which to meet. This was at least 2 years after the incident occurred, and she claimed that she had never been to the apartments before or after the incident. So how do you know that the DA gave you the correct address versus misleading you to the wrong apartment for the sake of the case? It's a great question. There are no witnesses of this meeting outside of Narita and the people who work for the DA's office and the Kenosha DA. Kenosha and Milwaukee DAs. Narita and the DA both argued that Google Maps has an error where it directs to the wrong building even when the correct apartment building is input into your Google Maps. However, Narita claims she used Google Maps for that meeting, but evidence proved that she actually used Apple Maps on the night in question. So again, how do we know that the result of where it directed her to the first time was different or not? So how do we know exactly when was she directed to the wrong building? Was it the night of the 17th, or was it the day that she met with the DA's office? We don't know. So even still, the DA requested this meeting with Narita based on his knowledge that Rosalio had told Sadie in a text in February 2020 that Google Maps is often incorrect and leads to the wrong building. However, there is no evidence that Rosalio told Narita that about said error in May. So how do we know that the error was still occurring in May 2020, where Narita was the one navigating to his house? If it was still a known issue, wouldn't he have mentioned it to her like he mentioned it to Sadie the first time navigating? So would he have told her? Probably. Just like I said, he told her, it was the wrong address going to Milwaukee, the first screenshot she sent. So when she sent the second screenshot, he should have said if it would have taken her to the wrong place or not. But he didn't, so... The changing of her statement is highly suspicious and possibly a sign of witness tampering on the part of the DA. So that would mean Zach's due process. And this was an issue in the past because the first time it went to trial, if you've been following my series, the DA announced to the defense for the very first time during his opening statements that he met with Narita at the crime scene. They did not know this until later. They did not know this until the trial began, and they had to call a mistrial because they had already planned their whole defense around this witness. So they had to change things. So anyways, yes, due process was definitely violated in this case. In both that, I believe he tried to get Narita to change her testimony, and he tried to get other testimony against Zach that it was not true. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so for the sake of this argument, it is possible that Narita just didn't know that she was at the wrong building on the 17th. However, the likelihood that someone navigating to someone else's house for the very first time and not even looking at the address that's illuminated on the building numbers to confirm their whereabouts, that would be ridiculous. So, especially when you're just sitting in your car waiting for 45 minutes, it's implausible and unbelievable. Hold on 1 second. Alrighty, sorry. Dogs are being pains in the butt, and I'm the only one home right now. So, all right. So changing her statement is highly suspicious, and whatever. Okay, so the likelihood that someone navigating to someone else's house, I said that, okay, would be, and not looking at the numbers for the very first time that you're going there, it's impossible and unbelievable. So we really do think that the DA had something to do with changing this witness's testimony. Up next, if she had looked at the building numbers on May 17th, which is most likely based on the evidence and testimony as we've already gone over, as confirmed, she was at the right building, and then she changed her story to become more favorable to the DA's case and lied on the stand to aid Zach's conviction. So that's basically what we believe, the Free Zachariah Anderson folks believe happened. So the DA specifically focused on this witness because he knew that the defense was using her testimony as proof that the timeline was even more impossible for Zach to have been involved. If Narita was in front of the correct building and did not see anything or anyone that was out of the ordinary, any, carrying a body wrapped in a rug might be out of the ordinary. She didn't see any of that. So this means Zach would have had only 1 hour and 1 minute to somehow single-handedly get Rosalio's body out to his van and get home to Mequon by 11:19. And that is my dog whining when he doesn't get food when he wants it. Hold on 1 second. Okay, sorry. Let's get through these last 4 without any more interruptions. My dogs are being buttheads. The DA specifically focused on this witness because he knew that the defense was using her testimony as proof that the timeline was even more impossible for Zach to have been involved. If Narita was in front of the correct building and did not see anyone or anything out of the ordinary before leaving at 10:18, that means that Zach would have had only 1 hour and 1 minute to somehow single-handedly get Rosalio's body out to his van and get home to Mequon by 11:19. 1 hour and 24 minutes away by fastest non-highway, non-camera filled roads. But even then, you'd still pass by some cameras, I'm sure. Maybe not the 37. Well, we'll get to that. So I don't want to blow my countdown. All right, so next, I think on the list, next on the list is Jailhouse Snitches Incentivized Testimony. And this is Marquand Washington. Marquand Washington testified, among many other things, but he testified that Zach spoke in his sleep yelling, "Die, die, die, mother effer." And then, according to Washington, when he told Zach about it the next day, Zach admitted to ending Rosalio's life, and he told him in great detail what he did. This was testified to minutes after Marquand Washington said that Zach had told him the police were framing him and planting evidence. So how could both be true, is my question. I don't think Marquand Washington thought that through. I think that was honest. I think when he said Zach was telling him that police were trying to frame him and planting evidence, I think that was an honest answer as to what Zach was telling him in their 3 weeks that they lived together. But anyways. All right, so he also uses the phrase pretty much very often throughout his testimony, which is a gigantic red flag, indicating that someone is not telling the entire truth or only filling in, they might fill in a lot of their own speculation or their own inferences when you say pretty much. So at one point, Judge Schroeder actually had to tell him to refrain from saying that phrase or refrain from saying things that began with pretty much because it's not an accurate account. So Judge Schroeder even knows that that's a big red flag that someone's lying. So during the defense's case, Marquand Washington was called back to the stand, and he was confronted with what was a video of his earlier testimony where Attorney Gravely had been seen mouthing along to his testimony simultaneously to the die, 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 mother effer. He clearly was mouthing along at the very same time. It was simultaneous. The judge agreed, and the defense agreed, and Gravely denied it, but he really didn't have much to say to back out of it. All right, so Marquand Washington. So basically what this means is it almost looks like the prosecution is feeding stories or feeding testimony to the witness. So Marquand Washington stands to benefit from his testimony by potentially getting time off of his federal sentencing for illegal substance moving. This option would be available to him. This option of getting time off of his sentence would be available to him if he testified favorably to the state's case in return for a recommendation for a lenient sentence from the DA himself. So the DA in this case would write a letter for his Marquand's federal sentencing, the judge or, the prosecutor and the judge in his federal case. He would make a recommendation. So Washington was then called out for being a case jumper by another inmate, Nicholas McAtee, who you can also see on the screen down here. So McAtee testified for the defense after declining a similar deal on his federal case by DA Gravely. So the prosecution, Gravely, came up to McAtee also and said, we would be willing to cut you a deal, write you a letter, get some time off of your sentence if you too also, not necessarily in this case, but in other cases. I don't know what case it was. They didn't specify what case it was that he could have testified for a favorable outcome for, just like Marquand Washington. So it wasn't necessarily this case that he would have been a snitch on, but they did say, he was approached by DA Gravely to get the same kind of deal that he gave Marquand Washington, was to testify in a case and then get some time off your sentence. But he declined it, and he instead thought that it was the better thing to do to be honest and tell the defense what Marquand Washington said. He had, told him conversations about jumping on cases so you can help yourself, and if it's you or them, and all this stuff. So he doesn't care who he takes down because he doesn't care. It's him or them. Basically, was what we got out of that testimony. So what do you think? Do snitches, jailhouse snitches who get some kind of incentive for their testimony, do you find them credible? Because I sure don't. All right, so number 3, the state's timeline doesn't work. My number 3. All right, so here we see a timeline. We have a 10:10. This could be the possible last time that someone could have been at Rosalio's house doing something that we know of, because it's the last movement of his phone. which is an orientation change. It goes from portrait to landscape. And from that moment on until Zach's phone pings off of a tower in Mequon near his home is 1 hour and 1 hour and 9 minutes. 1 hour, 9 minutes. So the fastest route home at that time, so now there's a new exit, so now he could have made it home in 56 minutes, which really that's not a whole lot much better, but still, the fastest route home, 1 hour, 1 minute, leaving approximately 8 minutes or so to end Rosalio's life, stage the apartment, and get the body into the van. That's a lot to do in 8 minutes. And with Narita watching the outside of the building the whole time. So how did he do that? Magically. The non-highway route would have been 1 hour and 24 minutes. So that exceeds the time in between events. So we can assume that he did not take that time home if indeed he was at Rosalio's house. So he wouldn't have taken non-highway. But that just means that he was on the highway and there were many, many cameras. Anyway, so what is the evidence? What does the evidence show? Although Zach could have made it home in an hour and 9 minute time frame using highways, his vehicle would have been spotted on at least 33 traffic cameras. So we know this is not the case. If it were, two things have to be assumed for this to be true. One, that it wasn't Rosalio himself handling his phone at 10:10, and two, that his phone was put in the freezer at 10:10 p.m. and then an immediate mad dash to the car occurred. So really, I mean, there is no time in between for an altercation to occur enough to you ending someone, because, you know, it can take some time to end someone, especially when it's not like an instant shot to the head or something, you know. I mean, if there was blows happening to his head or whatever, like he's not going to, sorry to say, or to be so graphic, but he's not going to die right away. Like, there's going to be a struggle, which is why it looks like, you know, there was spatter all over the several rooms in his house, at least in that front area there. Anyway, so if, where do we leave off? Mad dash to the car. Okay, so there is no evidence that shows that Rosalio was definitely ended by 10:10 p.m. There's no evidence stating that. He could have been the one that moved his phone at 10:10. He could have put the air diffuser on the next day. He could have done these things. He could have blown off Narita for some reason. Why? I don't know, but he could have. He could have been abducted and not ended. We still don't know. It's absolutely possible that he could have moved his phone at that time and then been killed afterwards, which would make the timeline impossible. So the scene also does not support this theory because, one, the apartment lights were turned on, two, a bag of tools were left directly in front of the patio sliding door, which is the likely exit point, and three, the patio curtains were closed and the screen door was closed. So whomever was there took the time to close down the apartment, stage it. Like I said, he moved furniture, likely. So it was not, it would have taken time. Probably more than 8 minutes, that's all I'm saying. So because Zach was not seen on any cameras reviewed by the Kenosha PD, it is reasonable to assume that he would have had to take non-highway routes to avoid all the cameras, but that's impossible because of the time frame. So that makes the state's time frame impossible unless he was going well above the speed limit through major cities, which I doubt. There is no way that he could risk speeding or running red lights and getting pulled over if he had a body in the back of his van. And just because he would have avoided the highway traffic cameras doesn't mean that he would have avoided all of the cameras, like on gas stations, public buildings, schools, blah, blah, blah. All those buildings, all public or private, doorbell, ring cameras. Nothing spotted Zach's van. No cameras. All right, so what does this mean? This is, there's an extremely narrow possibility for this timeline to have occurred the way that the state is saying that it occurred. Coupled with zero footage of Zach's van traveling the long distance between these two locations, makes it absolutely impossible for Zach to be the unaliver of Rosalio Gutierrez Jr. There is zero evidence that exists that shows that Zach ever left his home on that day, and the timeline doesn't work. Number 2, which piggybacks on number 3. No camera footage of Zach's van leaving Rosalio's. So, if Zach was at Rosalio's apartment on the evening of May 17th, there are 34 to 45 traffic cameras depending on his route home. And he was not spotted on any one of the cameras. And the police did canvass many, many places. So Kenosha PD canvassed the areas around Rosalio's apartment, Zach's home, the Anderson Greenview Tree Farm, and Susan Brown Williamson's property to find local surveillance cameras. So they did canvass the area and found many cameras. They reviewed recorded footage from residential and commercial surveillance cameras and contacted the Wisconsin Department of Transportation and Illinois Tollway. So IDOT and W dot. I don't know. Is that what you guys call Wisconsin Department of Transportation? W dot. We call ours IDOT. Illinois Department of Transportation. All right. Specifically, they reviewed the footage and records for any sightings of or traffic violations for Zach's Dodge Caravan from the 17th through the 18th, which was the proposed time frame of Rosalio's disappearance. And again, not a one found him. So here we have, this is just the cameras, listing of the cameras and what they did. So here, Wisconsin Department of Transportation, Illinois Tollway, no license plate readers, no license plate captures, no violations whatsoever during that time frame. And then all these other, whoops, went way too fast there. So these other 4 others here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I already counted them. A total of 15 cameras were reviewed at least, plus no license plate recognition or violations in Wisconsin or Illinois. So explain that one to me. And the number one reason why Zach is innocent is because there is no evidence tying Zach to Rosalio whatsoever. So first of all, this is again a multi-parter. So, first of all, no body, no weapon ever found. Due to law enforcement's narrowly focused investigation on Zach, Rosalio's body has never been located. They could have maybe found it if they looked in all the places instead of just looking at Zach. So he remained a missing person up until after the trial, which is when the court actually issued an official death certificate. So he remained missing this for the 3 years up until the trial. Having never found Rosalio's body, law enforcement relied heavily on mobile forensic data for their entire timeline. However, we do not know, we have no way of proving when exactly the attack took place or when Rosalio, or if Rosalio is indeed deceased, let alone who could have done it. At this point, we don't have the information because investigation didn't do their job. Hold on one second. Calm now. Sorry. He's getting antsy for his lunch. All right, so however, we have no way to prove when exactly the attack took place or if Rosalio is indeed deceased, let alone who could have done it because of law enforcement's crappy job that they did. So next, extensive and exhaustive searches. So they searched this field. It's Parkside Field that is behind. So Rosalio's apartment complex is right here. No, Dexter, go lay down. So the apartment complex is right here, and then here is the field that they did just a drone aerial search with a drone on May 20th, 2020. There was no foot search performed whatsoever. All right, so then more exhaustive and extensive searching. All of Zach's clothing that he was wearing was taken and analyzed on the 19th. Well, taken on the 19th. Zach's Mequon home was searched 3 times. A 2-day search on May 19th, 21st. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 3-day search, the 19th through the 21st, and then the 25th and the 28th of May. So they searched his house 3 times. And they also, while searching his house, searched the sink catches, which is like if you have a U-shaped plumbing under your sink, that's the catch. So that would be where, if you were washing your hands and you had DNA from, somebody else, because you were washing their red liquid stuff off of you. I can't say the word because of YouTube. Thanks a lot. Then that could potentially be a place where you could collect evidence and find if someone washed their hands and did that. So they searched the sink catches in his Mequon home. They searched Zach's computer. They searched multiple phones of Zach's. They searched his van 3 times. 3. May 20th with canines, December 16th and March 15th. 3 times they searched the van. March 15th, 2022. So 2 years later from the crime, they're still searching it, trying to pin something on him. They searched the Anderson Tree Farm 3 times. May 27th through the 28th, so a 2-day search with canines. Again on June 3rd, and again on July 28th, again with canines. And nothing. They found nothing. And by the way, that is Zach's cute little dad on his gigantic, whatever that is. I have no idea. I'm more of a city girl than a country girl, but it's huge. Those tires alone are ginormous. All right, and then Susan Brown Williamson's residence was also searched May 28th. We had 2 fire pits searched. The Mequon fire pit on the 21st, and they found nothing. The Tree Farm fire pit was searched twice, May 21st and May 28th. And the Mequon septic tank was also dug up and searched for evidence, for DNA analysis. And that was on May 21st. Oh, but they're not done. They also went to Harrington Beach State Park twice, July 17th and June 17th, the following year. That was in 2020 and 2021. The first year they had canines. The second year they had rove sonar imaging that they used for trying to find human remains, which they came up with none. Also, as we've spoke about, the surveillance footage from the 17th through the 18th, no license plate recognition, no violations, and no footage of him driving. But if that's not enough, the supposed DNA in Zach's van. This is probably what got him convicted, because this lady. What to consider? Luminol, that's Lisa Treffinger, by the way. She's an analyst for the Wisconsin State Crime, whatever, lab or something. All right, so luminol is a solution capable of detecting that red DNA substance that has been diluted up to 10,000 times. So even if you've cleaned it, diluted it up to 10,000 times, or less than 10,000 times, I should say, then it'll still show up in the luminol testing. So once luminol, it's a solution, you spray it on, and most of you probably already know this, but for those who don't. So once luminol comes into contact with the DNA, it reacts by causing it to glow a pale blue color. And I'm going to show you a picture in a minute. So luminol also causes a similar reaction with oxidizing chemicals like bleach. Although there were no pictures of it, the crime lab also used phenolphthalein in the van, which is a presumptive test that will turn pink to the presence of molecules within your red DNA. So they did the presumptive testing of phenolphthalein, however you say that, phenolphthalein, and that was negative, and they did luminol tests, and that was negative. This right here is a sample of luminol reacting to BLOOD. I feel like Snoop Dogg, BLOOD, sorry. And then this is Zach's van. This is Zach's van with luminol. So there's nothing that lights up. That's his rear view right there. So you could tell it's his car. They took a picture of a car, but nothing reacts. And that was supposedly just a few days after he took Rosalio's body and dumped it somewhere. All right, so what the evidence does show. Luminol testing was performed on the inside of Zach's van, and the entire van remained dark. As we just saw, none of the phenolphthalein turned pink on the inside of Zach's van. So, at this point, we pretty much can assume that there really is no DNA of Rosalio's in there. All presumptive testing was negative, which means there was no BLOOD or bleach even that was detected. And someone did tell me that the chemical within bleach that it starts to break down over time. And so if there was an old bleach stain in the van, like I was asking in one of my other streams, because there are bleach stains back there, or some kind of stain on the carpet where it's lighter than the rest of the carpet. But over time, if it's an old stain, they said over time those chemicals will dissipate and they won't react to the luminol anymore. So that would be why it didn't react, most likely. So Juliana Avila, who is right here on your screen, she testified that there was no indication of BLOOD in Zach's van, period, end of story. These two both analyzed the van together, by the way, but Lisa's testimony was misleading versus Julianne Avila, who told us, I think, the truth, that there was no indication of anything there. So this is why Lisa Treffinger's DNA testimony is misleading. On October 3rd, 2023, forensic DNA expert Tiffany Roy filed a formal complaint with the Wisconsin Department of Justice Division of Forensic Sciences in regard to the testimony provided by Lisa Treffinger, Wisconsin State Crime Lab analyst. During the trial, the state alleged that Rosalio Gutierrez's BLOOD was found in the back of Zach's van. In fact, this information was released to the media by the prosecution's office, so they were already trying to get that information out there years before the trial in order to make Zach seem like he was a guilty party. So, of course, media and everybody's going to jump on that case and say, oh yeah, Zach did it. However, in Lisa Treffinger's testimony, she states that the only BLOOD found in Zach's van was item A1, which was a one pinhead sized speck of reddish brown substance. The crime lab collected a swab from the stain, and Treffinger stated the DNA matched Rosalio Gutierrez. However, she confirmed no testing was completed to identify the substance of that swab because it was too minuscule to run both DNA testing and presumptive testing. However, the district attorney asked for Lisa Treffinger's opinion, and she stated her opinion is that the stain was BLOOD based on its appearance and the fact that it provided a robust DNA profile which wouldn't be seen with skin cells. So that's her opinion.
As you will see in Tiffany Roy's complaint, Lisa Treffinger's statements of opinion and other assertions of fact is unfounded, baseless, and at times scientifically untrue. The claims that Rosalio's BLOOD was found in Zach's van were completely unsubstantiated and don't match the other evidence asserted in the case. All other presumptive tests of the van were negative, including several other reddish-brown stains that they found within the van, and they were all excluded from being Rosalio or being BLOOD. So, after reviewing Lisa Treffinger's testimony, Tiffany Roy of Forensic Aid LLC made a formal complaint to the Division of Forensic Sciences and the Wisconsin Department of Justice. And we're gonna read through some excerpts of her letter. So this complaint is about the testimony of Lisa Treffinger offered in the case of Wisconsin versus Zachariah Anderson. Upon review of her testimony, Lisa Treffinger reports that she took a position in the quality assurance program as a specialist. With such a position, she should certainly be interviewed about her sworn statements in the above-mentioned case, so Zachariah versus Wisconsin, and should not be involved in the investigation of the quality complaint. Ms. Treffinger made several misstatements and overstatements of the tests that she performed and the data that she reported in the Anderson case. She makes statements when prompted that use the phrase reasonable degree of scientific certainty, which has no meaning in science, and the use of which has been recommended against. You're not supposed to say reasonable degree of scientific certainty. There's no reason to say that. It's misleading. Lisa Treffinger fails to correct and in fact confirms with the prosecuting attorney that her results can be stated within the standard of scientific certainty in the event a question is asked and her scientific opinion aligns with what is being implied or questioned. The words reasonable degree and scientific certainty should not be part of any scientific explanation or presentation. These are words suggested to scientists for lawyers as part of legal advocacy. Nothing is 100% in science, and therefore using phrases like scientific certainty are misleading to jurors and lay people who are unaware of the limitations and error rate of the science being questioned. No human endeavor is without error and without limitations. Not correcting the attorney when she stated that the term a reasonable degree of certainty was a standard was error. Reasonable degree of certainty, of scientific certainty, has no meaning in science. It may very well be a legal standard, but not a scientific standard, and Treffinger is not a lawyer at liberty to comment on legal standards. Treffinger also answers in an affirmative about events that could have caused someone's DNA to be on an item. While it may be appropriate to educate the jury on research regarding transfer, persistence, prevalence, and recovery of DNA, those descriptions should not be case-specific circumstances or evidence. Treffinger confirms she believes that the cells which are responsible for the DNA are skin cells or BLOOD, but does not provide the basis for her opinion. In fact, no serological data or results can inform a DNA analyst of these things. Her casework training and experience would not be sufficient to inform on such an opinion as the one offered here. She makes statements for several items that Rosalio Gutierrez is the source of the BLOOD on those items. She is connecting dots and making associations that are the province of the trier of fact. So she should not be making those assertions. They should be coming from the jury. She is connecting, okay, I just said that. Screening tests indicate the presence of peroxidase activity, not BLOOD. So that means not blood. She makes other statements that exceed her expertise, like using bleach to clean a car. Her responses to that line of question were purely speculative and based on no scientific evidence, tests, or data. The most serious misstatements during the DNA testimony, the question was something like, do people usually use bleach to clean BLOOD? And she's like, yeah, bleach is often used to clean. But okay, like where's that even like so? That's not expert testimony there. That's speculative. Anyways, the most serious misstatements during the DNA testimony were related to item A1. First, she states that what was observed for item A1 was so small it was the size of a pinhead. Hold on one second. Sorry, my dog is such a bad boy sometimes. All right, so I'm trying to get through this. We're on the last one, and we just got to get through this. Okay. Observed on A1 was so small as the size of a pinhead, so no serological testing of any kind was performed on that item. So she doesn't know that it was even a biological anything, any kind of biological material. She speculates that given the color, I would say that it would be BLOOD. This is completely inappropriate, knowing the extensive number of substances that can react with a screening test for BLOOD, which can also have the same color and appearance. Second, there are many kinds of BLOOD that don't come from human people that would react with a screening test for BLOOD. It was if this were sufficient. Oh, I don't think I was supposed to read that part, or was I? Oh yeah, if this were sufficient, scientifically to opine that a stain is BLOOD, there would be no need for serological testing in any case. Scientists can provide opinions using reliable methods and based on scientific facts or data to case evidence. Trevenger's opinion that A1 was BLOOD was based on no scientific tests, no scientific data. It was pure opinion and would never satisfy the legal standards that govern scientific evidence in U.S. courts. She appeared to use a process of elimination approach along with a physical appearance of A1 and proceeded to offer the opinion that the DNA on item A1 came from the BLOOD of Rosalio Gutierrez. In an email with Angela Gabriel, spelling unknown, I do not have the transcript. She previously recognizes in writing that she could not confirm A1 was BLOOD. So in writing, she couldn't confirm that it was, but then on the stand, she says it is. So why is that different? The prosecutor asks her why her opinion here today differs from what she expressed in her email, and her justification was that Ms. Gabrielle didn't ask my opinion. In science, an analyst's personal opinion does not matter. So she just answered her own. She just basically that gives backup to the fact that it is her opinion and shouldn't be relied upon because it wasn't even in her report. So Trevenger tested that my opinion is that it was BLOOD when describing the possible cellular origins of item A1. This was based on no testing, no facts, no data. It was based only on the appearance of the stain. That is pure speculation. She further stated that skin cells don't give a robust profile, which is completely scientifically untrue, and that as to item A1, it is my opinion that it was BLOOD. I have never in my 16-year career witnessed a DNA analyst extend so far outside of their expertise. Immediate steps should be taken by this laboratory to review the testimony of Lisa Trevenger in this case and others. So not just this case, but what else has she been doing or testifying to in other cases? Because she needs some corrective action here. Retraining should be required for this analyst and any other analyst from the state of Wisconsin laboratory system laboring under those misconceptions. Attorneys for both parties should be notified of the substance of this complaint, the subsequent investigation, and any remedial actions taken. Sincerely, Tiffany A. Roy. So that is how we debunk the DNA. This woman claims it was BLOOD, but we don't know that for sure. And we never will. thanks to their crappy investigation. So that is, oh, sorry, I had a little more to go. We know now that Lisa Treffinger's testimony, which varies from her original report, is very misleading, if not an intentional fabrication. We can now state at this time there is no evidence of Zach's DNA on any of Rosalio's belongings. It's not in his apartment. It's not. They didn't find any of Zach's DNA anywhere in in Rosalio's belongings or in his place. And there was no evidence of Rosalio's DNA on Zach's belongings or his place or any, nothing. And they did extensive, exhaustive searches, if you couldn't tell by the amount of searching that I broke it down by. So, what do you guys think about that? Zach is still in prison. He has been for over 1,380 days. And I don't believe he should be. I don't think they got the right guy. They have I feel like it's super easy to get someone thrown in jail for something if you wanted to, in this case, at least in Wisconsin. You could just say, yeah, that guy did it over there. I don't know how, but I just know. And then there you go. They'll just take your word for it and put him behind bars and then make the evidence fit. And that's what I think happened here. And look at that pretty horse, by the way. That is a gorgeous horse. Anyways, these are some photos that I gathered from the Free Zachariah Anderson webpage just to kind of show you why we're here, why we're doing this, why is a good question. Why is Zach still sitting in prison? We know that he's appealing. We know that's in the works, but I don't know where that is at this time. So as information comes out, I will be informing you. I just don't know how soon and when that's going to be. I'll have to figure out how to keep abreast of his hearings and things like that. If they're available, I would like to see them. Anyway, so that is kind of where I'm going to leave you for Free Zachariah Anderson. I do plan on doing a couple bonus episodes where we'll just kind of sit through the interrogation, if I didn't tell you that already. We're going to do Sadie's and Zach's interrogation videos or police interviews, just to kind of get the full view of everything. And we will have gone full circle on this, I think. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode and all episodes on the Free Zachariah Anderson. Let me know if you do have updates, if you have information about this case, if you have contact information for the Andersons, and if they want to be on this show. I offer my platform for them if anyone from the Free Zachariah Anderson support team wants to come on my show and speak about what's going on in the case or talk about anything about Zach. So let me know in the comments below. Feel free to reach out to me at crimeandcourtchannel@gmail.com if you want to reach me by email. I appreciate it, and I am out of here for this one. Thank you so much, and take care. I appreciate you for watching. Bye now.
If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeandcourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.